Hey, welcome back to the Front Door Church podcast. My name is Dave Shrine, and this is Justin High Kick Trap. How you doing, High Kick?
Man, Justin, the one and only.
The one and only.
I guess that's not true, actually. Fun story. When I was a kid, I used to get called to the principal's office sometimes. And it would be like, hey, you're in trouble for this. Or one time it was like, hey, your mom's here to pick you up. And I was like, I don't think my mom was going to come pick me up from school today, but maybe something happened. I don't know. I'm slightly concerned. I get there, and it's not my mom. But there was a student. He actually lived a few streets down from me. His name was Justin Trapp, spelled the exact same way. His middle initial was A. Mine was B. So they used to get us confused all the time. So I guess I can't say I'm the one and only because, Justin, wherever you are out there, you're there as well. And there's, I think, a minor league baseball player named Justin Trapp. So there's many Justin Trapps out there.
I was trying to find a headshot of you once, and I searched Justin Trapp, and I saw a minor league baseball player. I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah. So 3 of a kind, 4 of a kind, maybe, I don't know. Not one of one.
But I call you High Kick because you got a compliment that you've got a nice high kick.
Oh, now we're talking about my kickboxing
Your
class.
Your kickboxing class, yeah.
Yeah, performance. You know, I'm a little old these days, so I can't get as high as I used to be able to.
This episode today is all about copywriting, not kickboxing. But anyone and everyone who runs a kickboxing gym or church, a kickboxing church, you're out there, send us a message. I want to visit. You need to get good at copywriting if you hope for anyone to do anything that you're asking them to do, whether it be for your gym, whether it be for your church, whether it be for just going down to the grocery store and taking advantage of whatever offer they've got. Copywriting is very important. I have a quote here to kind of give us an overarching, like a big tent as to why we're having this conversation and why we need an entire episode and why, quite frankly, you should care about the words that you use on your website beyond just making sure the gaps are filled in. This one comes from Blair Warren. I heard this a long time ago from someone named Ray Edwards, and I'm going to reference Ray Edwards later on in this episode. But this quote says, "People will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies." Let me read it one more time. People will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. Now, you can go back and you can play that multiple times and listen to it with the context that that's your job. That's your mission when it comes to the words you are choosing to use, whether it's on your website, whether it's in your emails, whether it's in your bulletin, or whether it's in the slides that go in the pre-service slideshow. Your job is to encourage them, justify failures, silence all their fears, confirm suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemy. And we got a good enemy to throw rocks at, a very valiant enemy, but we've got big rocks that can slay a big giant. So we're going to talk about that. Ultimately, what I want you to know is that the success of anything you plan, no matter how big or how small, how long you've been planning it, or how last minute it's thrown together, the success is going to be determined by the words you choose to use in order to describe what it is you want people to do. In other words, you could spend 4 months planning an event. If you only take 20 minutes to decide what the words need to be on the website to promote that event, you're doing something wrong. So I think we really need to start with why copywriting matters. And when we say copywriting, we are meaning the words that you are writing down. That's the professional term. The words that you are writing down in order to be used to promote whatever it is you're trying to communicate.
Yeah, words matter, right? We've heard that saying before, usually in the context of maybe an argument or conversation.
Never you, though.
No, not never.
Never.
Hi, Tisha. So, words matter. The words that you use on your page matter. The words that you use in your emails matter. The words that you use in your email subjects, they matter, right? Because at the end of the day, writing copy is really a mathematics game. Let's say you have 1,000 people that you're sending an email to. And the words that you use in that subject line will no doubt determine how many people open that email. And the difference could be a 8% open rate or a 20% open rate. That's a big swing in the number of people that see the words you've written on the inside. And you're sending out that email because you want people to read it. You want people to, there's probably something inside that you want them to take action on.
And you've done a good job because you got their email address. So go you.
Yes. But literally the 4 words you use in the subject are going to determine the impact of that email. And to me, that's a big deal. So I have entrepreneurs and people that are starting businesses, or they're like, hey, I have a service that, a side hustle. What do I need to do to grow my business? And I always say the same thing. And it's always like a want answer to them, right? And I say, hey, you need to get really good at writing copy. And that just seems like a boring answer to them.
Really?
But if you just think about it, the words that you use compel people to action. Same thing. If you have 1,000 people that visit your website, a good portion will just leave automatically within a few seconds. That's not just exclusive to your site. That's every site.
Every site. Every industry. Just think about your own behavior. When you are searching on a search engine, you click the first result, you're scanning, and then you're leaving. But what is it that you're scanning for? You're scanning for words.
Yeah, you're skimming quickly, right? And so eventually, when you get to the bottom of that page, there's only going to be a certain percentage of people left, right? And maybe there's a call to action at the bottom of that page where it's, if you're a church, it's plan a visit, or register for a youth event, whatever the case may be. There's only going to be a certain percentage that are left at the bottom of that page. And what determines what that percentage is are the words that you use. And so it's important that we get really, really good at writing copy as church leaders and church communicators, because, we have the greatest story to tell and the greatest product, in the history of mankind. So we want to expose that product or that story, the good news is what I'm talking about. We want to expose that to as many people as possible when they visit our websites and interact with us. So
you need to realize too that even though we are in the nonprofit world, even though we are in the faith-based world, and specifically churches, you are ultimately in sales. And the sales that you are in is getting people, you're selling them on the idea to visit your church. You're selling them on the idea to register for baptisms. You're selling them on the idea to get them into a next step class. You are in sales. Joseph E. Kennedy has a statement. This is from a long time back, but he says essentially copywriting is salesmanship in print. And so when you write things down, you already talking about this, but I've got 3 points. Your copy, the words you choose to use, will make people move. Your copy will compel them to take action. And your copy, the words you choose to use, your salesmanship in print, will convince them to make changes in their lives, whether that's to their schedule, whether that's to who they're trusting for their eternal salvation. Your copy, the words you choose, is essentially the mechanism by which they're going to be convinced to make changes in their lives. And so that's why copy matters. There's a lot we could say about that. There's a lot more we could say. You have one more item to say too.
Well, it was a great book. If you want to dive into copywriting, I'm sure you have some others that you'd like to mention, Dave, but a great book is A Copywriter's Secrets by Russell Brunson and Jim Edwards. And Russell Brunson talks about, he's a prolific copywriter. I'm sure he has people that work for him now.
He's probably writing copy right now.
He's incredible, right? But he says that people, here's why words matter, right? You can present a problem and you can present a solution, and people will actually feel like they've solved their problem. Like, let's say they're hard, they're really disorganized. Like, let's say you're a church and you're just really disorganized and you have forms everywhere and you need new forms, and you come across a site and they're selling you a church documents and forms package where you get like hundreds of templates and forms to use, and you buy that. The endorphins released when you purchase that make you feel like you've already solved the problem. That's how powerful words are. And Russell Brunson talks about it in the book called Copywriter's Secrets.
So that just pretty much revealed why I have a whole bunch of courses and products that I signed up for and never looked at, because it just makes you feel like you've done something.
Yeah.
And it's the words on those websites,
yes,
and in the emails that eventually, they move us to take that action. So that's why we need to think about our copywriting. The next thing that we need to do is identify who we need to be thinking about. So it's great that we know we're going to focus in on our words, but if our words don't resonate with the audience we're trying to reach, it really doesn't matter how impactful or how intentional we are with those words, we need to make sure that we're focusing on the right person. And so I've got 3 things written down here, and we can discuss if we want to. But number 1, you just need to know your church demographics. You need to be Saddleback. They had the Saddleback Sam. So if you just do a search for Saddleback Sam, that'll give you an idea of what is known as an avatar, an ideal customer, so to speak. And we can grab all of these different concepts from the marketing world, and we can take those, redeem those concepts, and put those into play for the church. And the avatar is one of those concepts. So you identify, what they're into. You identify what they do for fun. What does their family look like? What kind of home are they living in? What do they do on the weekends? When they get off of work and they go home at the end of the day, where are they spending their time?
What motivates them?
What motivates them, because you want to turn it all into words that they ultimately resonate with. So you need to know the demographics of your church, and then you turn that into your avatar. And so really you can start as easy as, what's the age range that we really want to reach out to? That's the best place to start. Then you say, what's the life stage? What is the marital status? What is the children's status? And you just go and expand from there. So that's the first thing. The next thing is you start thinking about the feelings that this person encounters day in and day out. What are the obstacles that they're encountering? What is vying for their attention? So if you have an older congregation, if you watch the commercials during the soap operas during the day, you can know exactly what's on the brain of seniors because of the commercials.
Life alert.
Life alert. That's right. Jitterbug. Dun, dun, dun. Do you remember the jitterbug phone?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, Mom, if you see this and you're mad at me for telling this story, I'm sorry. When the iPhone first came out, actually the second one, the iPhone 3G.
Oh, man, we're going way back.
We're going way back. And I was talking with my wife, I was talking with my dad and my sister. I was like, you know what? Let's all get iPhones. We'll all go down there at AT&T and we'll line up for them. And my mom comes in. She goes, why is everybody just assuming I don't want an iPhone? Like, well, do you want an iPhone? She goes, no. But I would like to be asked.
It's the principle of it.
It's the principle of it. So anyways, I don't even know why I was talking about, older demographics, jitterbug. So we got my mom a phone that was more like a jitterbug. Anyways, what are the feelings? What are the things that they're encountering every single day? And you can watch commercials and find out what all of these other marketing companies are targeting, and you can reverse engineer that.
Well, I think a common mistake that we make, right, as copywriters or church communicators, is we often tend to write about ourselves, like through the lens of our organization, our church.
Yeah.
Join us. Join our newsletter.
We've done this.
Yeah.
We're hosting that.
Sundays at 10 a.m., right? It's sort of insider language, or we're really writing about ourselves.
Yeah.
And when people visit your website, there's no connection that's made there when you're writing about yourself.
They don't care about you.
No, they don't. They care about themselves.
They care about themselves.
So if you can figure out the Saddleback Sam of your church and write to that person so that when they hit your website, they feel this sort of connection, like you've addressed them, and there's something that happens there where they go, okay, they pause. Oh, that's interesting. That I'm curious.
Yeah.
There's something there that sort of catches their interest, and then they investigate further, then they browse longer, then they click the buttons that you want them to click. But if you're just talking about yourself as an organization, that's really just going to fall on deaf ears.
They're not interested in you. They're not interested in your sermon series.
I made a hearing analogy. Sorry, I totally threw it off. I was like, that's a terrible example.
It's all good. We shall redeem it, just like we redeem so many other things.
There it is.
Like marketing.
Let's stop and say a prayer.
Let's stop and say a prayer right now. You go through and you just start thinking about what are the things that matter to them. And the third thing that I want you to think about as it relates to who you're targeting is what their emotions are as it relates to the future. What do they want on the other side of the horizon? What are they working towards? I remember when I was at one of my previous churches on staff, I remember in one of the Discover Our Church classes, somebody came in, and very, very kind husband and wife, and they said, we used to go here. I said, great. What brought you back? He said, our son is about 8 years old now, and we would really like for him to start getting his religious education now. And I was thinking, okay, like I've never heard that before, but for them on the other side of the horizon was, we want a religious foundation for our child. And so you start thinking, okay, what are the parents like in our area, and what do they want for their families? What do they want for their children? Parents are a really great way to target families because they might not necessarily be perceiving they have a need that could be met by the church or that can be met through faith, but they look at their kids and they say, I want this to be in their lives. And so that's a great way to think about, okay, what do they envision their future looking like, and how do we speak to that?
Well, so I'm going to go back a little bit, and it supports your point here about writing about ourselves. And like, for instance, you go to just Google churches, Boise, Idaho, and you'll find, dozens and dozens of churches, and it's a lot at the top of those results will be large churches. And you can go to those large churches and you'll see they'll be writing about themselves. Join us Sundays, 10 and 11 a.m. And that, again,
those are close back-to-back services, 10 and 11 a.m.
They're quick.
There was a children's minister that just had a panic attack when they heard that.
But here's a great example of a church. So there's this church in our area. It's called Loft Church. And Loft Church is a very eclectic congregation. They sort of target the disenfranchised, the down and outers, the outliers, right? And so they came out with this campaign. It was on their homepage. I saw some advertisements too in the outdoor market place area that we have here locally. And their headline was this: "Rethinking Church, so are we." And it's addressing someone, right? It's addressing a very specific type of person. And I thought that was that's a great example of saying, not just saying, hey, Loft Church, Sundays, right, 10:30 a.m. They're actually saying, hey, are you rethinking church? Have you had doubts? I mean, they're saying a lot with just that one statement.
They're saying a lot with just saying a little.
Yeah. And so a person reads that, they see that, they come across that, and immediately they're going to answer it in their head, right? And now they're curious. And so I feel like that's a good example to say, hey.
Well, that's a great example because you basically identified their avatar as you were describing the church. You were like, there's this church locally. How would I describe them? I would describe them as going for the people who are the down and outers, the people who are disenfranchised. All of that is created by their branding, and their branding is not just their logo or their colors, but it's the words that they choose to use. And I think that's a really great example of how they have essentially accomplished their mission in the little bit of communication that you've had with them. Yeah. So that's who you need to be thinking about: the church demographics, the feelings of the people that you're trying to reach, and then the emotions of how they feel related to their future. And you tap into that and you speak to what it is they're ultimately hoping to achieve. The next thing that we want to talk about is actually, what do you need to get good at? So we say you need to get good at copywriting, you need to get good at writing, but we want to give you something really practical. There's a whole litany of things that I would love to prescribe to you and say, get good at this, that, and everything else. But we're going to give you just a couple really easy things. If you were going to tell somebody, really take time to sit back and think through this one area, where would you tell them to put their time and energy on copywriting?
I'd say three things.
I said one.
It's really two things, actually. Yeah. Get good at the first things that you write, the first statement that they see, whether that's the subject line in an email, in their inbox, or the headline on a page. Get really good at the first thing that they see, and the last thing that they see, which is usually the call to action at the bottom of the page, or the end of the email, or the PS with the hyperlink to register for a youth event or mom's night out or whatever the case may be. Get good at the first and the last thing.
I like thinking about my headlines. Copywriters all have their different prompts. And so one of the areas that you're really passionate about is subject lines. I think I'm a good subject line writer, but I'll send 4 subject lines to this guy and he'll be like, I wonder if we did this. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, I'm not going to die on this hill. And typically they do wind up being better because that's something that you really focus in on. And I asked you one time, I said, okay, I want to try to give you better subject lines that feel more like what it is you're looking for. What is it that I can use to prompt me? And do you remember having this conversation?
Yeah, I do remember this conversation about what I said.
You told me you said 4 words or less. Yeah. I try to make sure that the subject lines in an email are 4 words or less. I said, okay, that's what I'm going to aim for here on out is 4 words or less.
And 4 words or less, can you create curiosity?
Yeah.
Can you create intrigue? Can you create tension? Can you create mystery in those 4 words? I think that's the important part, right? Join us this Sunday. That doesn't create any of those. Right?
No, I'm not interested whatsoever.
No.
The prompt I like to use when writing subject lines in particular, but headlines, I'll lean on this, is the combination of informative yet mysterious. Yeah. So there's just enough information to set the context, but there's just enough ambiguity or vagueness to get them curious as to what I actually mean. There's mystery behind it.
I mean, if you had a subject line and your church is sending out an email to everybody at the church, and so they know it's coming from your church, and you said mystery guest on Sunday. To me, that creates mystery.
Yeah.
Right? Well, you've used that adjective, but that's very different than join us this Sunday.
Yeah. Oh, way different.
Hopefully you have a Mr. Guest lined up.
Yeah, right. One of the I was gonna say, hopefully the mystery guest isn't the Holy Spirit. There every week. We probably need to cut that out.
There it is.
But one of the most talked about subject lines ever. We're probably spending too much time on this. We'll move on. But
it's important, guys.
It is important.
It could be the difference in hundreds of people reading your email or not.
I think it was the 2008 election, and Obama's campaign sent out a subject line that just said, "Hey." That was it.
Yeah.
That's all. Think about that. Think about the person that it's coming from, and think about that subject line. No matter what your political affiliation is, it's kind of weird for a future president of the United States to just put a subject line out there that says, "Hey," and immediately you're thinking, okay, what's this about?
So I actually had a similar subject line. I thought it was a brilliant email. The email, in the body of the email, was talking about the hardship of entrepreneurs, right? And what we go through as business leaders and trying to support not only our family, but other families. And the subject line was, "Hey, comma, are you okay? Question mark."
Yeah.
And it was from somebody I knew. So I actually legit thought that he was emailing me directly, but it went with the content, right?
Yeah.
So it was a little fake-a-rooski, but it got me to read it and it got me to open it.
It was a well done, well crafted headline. I want to recommend the book Copywriting That Sells by Ray Edwards, and he has a little bit of a framework. I told you about prompts. Well, here is the prompting that Ray Edwards recommends, and it's using the acronym. So right there for ministry leaders.
This is an easy one.
PASTOR, the PASTOR acronym. He is a believer, but when he does this for people, in the secular world, he's like, it's not religious or anything like that, but it does a good job. But problem, amplify, story or solution, transformation, offer, and response. And I'm going to tell you, every single one of those is relevant to what it is you're doing. You might think, well, we're not offering anything. Oh, yes, you are. You actually have a lot more to offer than any company or corporation out there has to offer. The story you have is much better than the story anybody else is telling. And that means you need to be diligent in putting your messaging together. And this framework, problem, amplify, story or solution, transformation, offer, or response, will help you tell that story in a more compelling way. Finally, where do we need to get busy writing? Well, Justin already gave you one, your headlines. Your headlines will determine what emails get opened or what pages get scrolled upon. So that's where we want you to start, is we want you to get busy going back onto your most trafficked pages, and you can use your analytics program to figure out your most trafficked, your most popular pages. And I want you to analyze each and every one of those using the content that we've talked about here today.
Can we have a few tips for those?
Yeah.
Can we share a few? So questions work awesome.
Yeah.
Now, not every page on your website needs to start with a question. I understand that. But questions and subject lines on emails and on page headlines work awesome. When you use the word "you," that really works awesome as well. There's also another, it's like a headline analyzer, coschedule.com.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that tool.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have this headline analyzer, and you put in your headline and it will give you a score. And it's not the gospel. Like, whatever they whatever they give you on the score is not the be all end all. However, if you just start playing with that tool and you just start adding in all kinds of headlines, it's pretty consistent, and you'll start to see what headlines are scoring more. Sometimes ministry specific terms won't get as good of a score because it doesn't understand the context. So if you're getting like really dialed in on a specific context, you're probably just gonna have to understand, know that going in, like, hey, this tool does not understand our particular community context
does not compute.
yeah, it doesn't. So it's not going to score as high. But I think overall, it's a great tool to just get some practice in, to be honest with you.
So, hey, are you okay? Got a score of 40.
Yeah, see that on an email subject?
False. Yeah, on an email subject line.
Yeah.
Where it says headline score. So it's a great place to get started.
Yeah.
But hey, are you okay is a great headline to use. Don't use it as gospel, use it as an inspiration to help you identify some things that, they say power words. It says increase your power words, increase your emotional words, increase your uncommon words. And it just gives you some insights. You don't have to have all of those green. It just gives you some things to aim for.
For example, mystery guest this Sunday.
Yeah.
Mystery is, I would say, an uncommon word, right? And so that adds intrigue to the headlines or to the subject line. So that's why it would score higher than just using new guest or we have a guest this Sunday type of thing. So
that scored a 44.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. These people don't understand the church world. We got you. We understand what you're working on. And it's just a great tool. So don't use it as gospel. Take it and apply it to your application.
Yeah. You'll start to see a pattern in how it scores things. And you'll start to go, okay, you'll start to connect the dots with how it's evaluating headlines. And that just going through that will make you a better copywriter.
So go through, update your headlines on your most popular pages, use your analytics program to figure that out. And the area where I would want you to spend some time is, especially if you're posting your services on YouTube, if you're putting the sermons on YouTube, I would like for you to go back. I would like for you to rethink the titles to answer questions that people are asking. Mm-hmm. So instead of saying baptism, it just says baptism.
Or sign up for a baptism.
Look back at those sermons, look back at those videos and think, okay, what need is this sermon addressing? And maybe the need that it's addressing is answering the question,
should I get baptized?
Exactly. See,
I took the words
right out of my mouth.
Man.
So you want to use the titles of your YouTube videos and the titles of your sermons to address a perceived need that someone may have, because ultimately you're leaving those on there so people can find them and get use out of them. And if the descriptions and if the headlines are not well thought out and filled with a little bit of interest or a little bit of information and a little bit of intrigue, then you're not going to get anybody rewatching them. So work on the titles of your YouTube videos, work on the titles of your sermons, and do better descriptions for your sermon series and better descriptions, or just a description at all for your sermons. Give somebody an idea about what they're about to get into before they get 20 minutes into a sermon. And I know some of y'all's pastors out there are doing 50-minute sermons, before they get 20 minutes in and realize this has nothing to do with what I'm looking for.
Yeah. You said something earlier, and it was sort of a tip.
It was probably brilliant.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And it was a tip that sort of you just kind of like quickly passed over, but I do want to say it again. When you're writing the body of any page or the body of a social post or the body of an email, remember that people skim. They don't read, they skim. And so I think it's important that when you're writing copy out on some of these pages that you give some spacing, appropriate spacing, knowing so someone's going to come to this page, they're going to glance at it, they're going to look and skim really fast, and then they're going to leave or they're going to click. So don't jumble everything together. That's just, I'm getting a little granular here, but
nobody's going to read the whole thing.
No.
Nobody is going to read everything that you write. So yes, read it for the people who are about to skim. So that's what we have to offer on this episode of Front Door Church. I do want to say, if you go to frontdoor.church, you will find a whole bunch of amazing resources there. And the reason why I want to direct those to you is because, number one, those resources speak to the needs that people in your community have. We've gone through and we've done a really intentional job of trying to say, okay, what are the needs that people have? What are the questions that people are asking as it relates to faith and things that the church can answer, and turn those into resources that can be then sent out and used to help attract people into your church, into your facility. And so if you go to frontdoor.church, you'll see our resources. When you become a member, you get access to those resources. And what is a really great hack for copywriting is to go into those resources and look at some of the content that's actually in there, some of the stats that are referenced, some of the phrasing, and then to take that and use that copy for the relevant pages on your church. Just a little hack there to help you kickstart your copywriting. In future episodes, we're going to be talking, I just sent it to you a little bit earlier today. Let me bring up the list here. We're going to be talking about online events and how to reach more people through online events. We're going to be talking about making sermons and repurposing sermons, making them more memorable. So there's a lot more to communicate, and we hope that you'll join us again on Front Door Church Podcast.